Hello and welcome to Called Bank Sports. This is our post-game review for the Utah Jazz Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, the Jazz just I don't really know what I expected to happen from this game. I mean, if I'm being 100% honest, I expected the Jazz to get thrashed. When I heard that not only did you not have Donovan Mitchell because of his injury, but Mike Conley was also sitting out, Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors were both out, which is frankly that's our depth that's our depth at the center position. We had Ilyasova start, but let me just double check Ilyasova's height so I'm correct on that. He's 6'9", so just power forward size more than center size. Overall, really just he started off amazing, but the Jazz were set up in a really bad spot, even with LeBron James and Anthony Davis being out with their injuries. When you have a 9-man rotation, I believe, like the Jazz do, and then you end up resting 4 of those, so you only end up with who typically plays. You have O'Neal, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, Ingles, and Niang were really the only 5 players who you see play minutes consistently for Utah. So again, I was just really happy that the Jazz were able to come back and send the game to overtime. I wish their defense had been better on Schroeder that last play. But that last play in my mind shows why Rudy Gobert is so important for the Utah Jazz, because you wouldn't have had Royce O'Neal have to guard Schroeder all the way to the basket, because Gobert would have been there and would have made Schroeder not even dream of trying to get a layup like that. And that's really overall what we saw. Is we saw that the Jazz have a lot of good depth that can be helpful, and players who we haven't seen play can play really well. But what you really need is you need your all-stars. You need Gobert, Conley, and Mitchell, and you also need your backup center. In my opinion, really the only other center on the roster, in Derek Favors. So Sawyer Parker just said in the chat, we did good considering we had a back-to-back and most players were out. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I mean, this showed the resilience of the Jazz, and it showed that goes through to the players who are on the end of the bench, the players who don't typically see a lot of minutes. Now, to be honest, though, the Jazz lost because of a lack of bench play. The Lakers had, at the end of the game, 27 bench points, and the Jazz only had 15 bench points. So the Lakers got 12 more bench points than the Jazz, and the Jazz lost by 12. So that shows where, in the end, we did really lose because our starters were out. And I do wonder how much of a decision to rest those main guys was made on Donovan getting injured yesterday, and just a concern of what happens if all of a sudden Favors or Gobert goes out. What happens if Conley goes out? Conley obviously in large part rested because this was a back-to-back, and due to his hamstring injuries, he rests back-to-backs. But I was shocked to see Gobert resting. Did not expect that, especially since while the Jazz are on a road trip right now, more or less, they're staying a couple days in LA. Their next game is against the Lakers Monday night, which is good for Utah. The players don't have to fly out tonight. They don't have to sleep in another bed. They can just stay at their same hotel. But overall, this is what's going to happen when you don't have your main guys. And thankfully, Donovan's the only one who's actually hurt, and everyone else is just being load managed. Sawyer Parker said, we played 2 games in less than 24 hours. Yeah, the schedule this year is absolutely bonkers. And I totally get why it is. The NBA needs to recoup all the money they lost from last season. So they need to get all the games they can. And with the Olympics being this summer, they're not able to just push the season back and push the playoffs back even farther. They need, lots of players want to go play in the Olympics. So by doing this, they're creating the opportunity for players whose teams will make a deep playoff run to also be able to go play in the Olympics. And it does really stink. Is Jamal Murray injured because of the season? And I don't necessarily think he is, but it definitely played a major role in it. Is that why LaMelo Ball is injured? Is that why Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Jimmy Butler, who all made it to the finals last year and had the shortest off seasons, are injured? I don't have a lot of medical experience, and by a lot of medical experience, I mean any medical experience. So I'm really not one to answer, but that definitely is food for thought. And it shows that while the NBA might move to a shorter season in the long run, that this isn't a good model to judge that off of based off the sheer number of back-to-backs that they have to have. And the fact when the Jazz played 3 games in less than 96 hours earlier this year on a road trip where they were flying between destinations. So it's been a tough season, and the Jazz have definitely avoided a lot of issues from that. And it does look like they're kind of pushing the 1 seed, and how are they going to balance? Do you need the 1 seed so you don't end up playing the 7 seed, who could end up being, the Dallas Mavericks, the Portland Trailblazers, or, I mean, if the Lakers fall, which I don't think is going to happen, the Lakers, and there could be a really good team in that 7 seed. And I think that you do want the 1 seed just so you get to play the worst team, because even if you end up playing Steph Curry or Zion Williamson, there is a major drop off, or Ja Morant. There's a major drop off between the 7 and 18, the 7th seed and the 8th seed in the West. And we'll see how that ends up panning out. But so 538 has updated their rankings. They give the Jazz a Okay, actually, have they updated their rankings? I don't think they've updated their rankings yet. They have the Jazz at a projected record of 53-19. And I think that happened after the Jazz announced how many players they were resting today. So right now, they project the Jazz finishing 3 games ahead of the Suns. And that's a tight race, especially depending on how the Suns play in their upcoming schedule. They've got a lot of tough games they're going to have to play, but the Jazz aren't going to have Donovan. What games do they lose because they don't have Donovan? And they probably won't have Donovan come April 30th for their last game playing the Suns. So the Suns already have the tie break, probably are going to win that game if Donovan's not playing. And if they go out and play a lot better over this Eastern Conference road trip than we think, they might be able to steal the 1 seed. I'm starting to get a bit more skeptical. The Jazz have had it locked up enough where the 1 or 2 losses has been like, well, they'll probably pull this out. But the Suns keep winning. And if the Suns keep winning, the Jazz aren't going to be able to keep the 1 seed. Step Back with Z said, do you think if Royce moved his feet faster, should have made that layup? I'm not sure what layup you're talking about. And there's a lot of things that could have went different in this game. When you get down to overtime, I mean, 1 call changes everything. Looking at the team stats, I mean, the Lakers shot 23 free throws compared to the Jazz's 8 free throws. I didn't see a lot of things that made me feel like the calls were going unfairly towards the Lakers, but that definitely helped. And again, showing why Gobert is so important, the Jazz had 37 rebounds tonight compared to the Lakers' 52 rebounds. So that 15 rebound difference really hurt the Jazz. Also, the Lakers had 64 points in the paint compared to the Jazz's 38 points in the paint. And if you have Gobert playing, you're going to get a lot more points in the paint, and that it's not going to be nearly, the Lakers aren't going to destroy by that much. Schroeder. Okay, I get that comment now. Step Back with Z. Maybe. I personally thought that, I mean, Royce just got beat really bad on that play, and it kind of stunk, but Schroeder is so fast. And when the Jazz don't have a center, you don't have Gobert the Jazz, I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, they drop Gobert as the big. So by dropping Gobert as the big, Schroeder's not even going to think about taking that shot. And maybe he makes something else, but that's not going to be an opportunity. I also believe that Ilyasova had 5 fouls at that point. So I can't actually remember if Ilyasova was in there, but that definitely kind of changes where you have Ilyasova on the court and things like that. So, yeah, Royce definitely could have guarded that better, but Schroeder is such an athlete that's why it's important that the Jazz play the drop big like they do, because it allows the fact that they don't have as athletic wing defenders to not cripple the Jazz as much as it would, because Gobert is able to be that last resort. And we didn't have Gobert in here. And that's why I think that even though, and I've said this a lot for those who are here regularly, that even though Donovan Mitchell would win the MVP, if a Jazz player would win the MVP, that Rudy Gobert is the most valuable player on the Jazz. The way that he impacts not only our offense with his screening, but our defense just every time the ball comes down the court is unparalleled by any other Jazz player. Sorry, Parker, we did bad at defense on Schroeder on the layup that tied the game. Yeah, and again, when we're missing so many key players, and Royce has had to step up a lot, not just from on the offensive side of the ball, because he was one of the two starters who was left. That's just not really setting the Jazz up for success with the absolute lack of depth you have when 4 of your 9 guys aren't playing. No worries, step back with Z. I sometimes I get those comments where most of the words make sense, but there's the 1 or 2 words. Sometimes I'll be able to immediately guess what it is, and other times I can't. So thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. Yeah, Ilyasova, to Sawyer Parker's point, did absolutely amazing tonight. Just so exciting to see him, and I'm wondering kind of where he can step into the lineup. He is a better defender than Bojan, so maybe you'll see him in for Bojan at the end of games, but I personally think we'll continue to see what, if you want to bring in a better defender, we're going to have Joe in at the end of the games. Joe is just 1 inch shorter than Ilyasova, and I'm pretty sure a better 3-point shooter. Obviously, Ilyasova probably has an insane 3-point shooting percentage right now. We can check it out since he hasn't taken that many. And when you go 6 for 8, 75% in your first start, you're definitely set up for success. Actually, it probably hasn't been updated yet, but he was shooting 26.7% from 3-point land. So he hadn't found his stroke quite yet when he got in at the end of games. But I mean, Ilyasova is the reason why we were in this, is one of the main reasons why we were in this game. And that's what was so cool for me, was to see all the depth that the Jazz have, and to see these players that we typically only get to see in increments at the end of the game coming in and playing significant minutes. And frankly, most of them doing really well. Thomas and Brantley only had 7 minutes apiece, and Trent Forrest was only played 12. So overall, those, again, like I said, the bench play just really hurt the Jazz tonight, and it makes a lot of sense when your bench is starting the game and not coming off the bench, so you have your deep bench as your bench. So Step Back with Z says, the Jazz said Donovan would be evaluated in 1 week, and in that week, we play the Lakers, Houston, Minnesota, and then Minnesota once more. Okay, I missed that evaluated in 1 week thing, so thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I will be interested. I did a quick Google search. So from my quick Google search, it says it typically takes people about 2 weeks to come back from a sprained ankle. And I think that was more just people in general. So Donovan, just from a health standpoint, and again, depending on the severity, and it's not too severe, but on that range of not too severe, the severity of the sprain, could very well be back in 7 to 10 games. I'm personally just not expecting him to be back until May at the earliest, in large part that way, so I'm not disappointed, or I'm not too anxious, since you don't want Donovan coming back and having what happened to Mike Conley happen to Donovan this year, where Mike Conley came back too early last year and got hurt again. Donovan is definitely a lot younger than Conley is, obviously, so his body will be able to bounce back better. but it would not surprise me to see the Jazz err on the side of caution. If the game I'd want to see him come back in, let me check the schedule really quick so I can remember. I think, who do the Jazz? So the Jazz play Sacramento on Wednesday, the 28th. So if they were able to come back against Sacramento on the 28th of April, Donovan was able to get back into rhythm, and then his second game back was the Suns. That would be ideal for Utah, but I don't know if that's going to happen or when he's going to be able to start back up. Let's see. Okay, Step Back with Z says, yeah, I think Donovan would have sat anyway if we played Houston, Minnesota. Yeah, I'm interested if Donovan would have sat or what the Jazz would have done, since Gobert sitting really surprised me. And I'll have to look into it. And there are definitely people who have more connections with the team and follow them just in ways that I can't, who might know this. But I do wonder if Gobert tweaked something or what, since I just still don't really see a big reason for him to rest, other than the fact that Donovan getting hurt might have really scared the organization yesterday, which would be my takeaway, is that the organization kind of got a bit scared yesterday, and because of that is making sure to rest their main guys so that they're able to be here, that they're able to be healthy come the playoffs. Now, Favors might have something up with him since he rested yesterday and then rested again today. Hey, thank you to everyone for joining. For those of you who just hopped on, join in the chat. We'd love to keep the stream going as long as we can, and leave a like if you can, and that helps other people find the stream. And if you haven't subscribed, we would absolutely love a subscription as well. So let me take a look really one more time at the team stats, see what else stands out to me. I am impressed with the Jazz 3-point shooting today. They shot 39%. They took 59 threes this game. Overtime definitely helps, but that is an insane number of 3-pointers compared to 33 by the Lakers. And definitely, if Ilyasova doesn't have the night that he has, shooting 6 of 8, all of a sudden the Jazz are 17 of 51, and which is around 34%. So Ilyasova having the night he had is really why the Jazz were so successful from the 3-point line tonight. I think Drummond would have 14 points if Gobert was there. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. Drummond would not have put up nearly as many points if Gobert was there. When the tallest player on the court for the whole game for the Jazz was 6'9", and you have 7-foot Andre Drummond, who just is giant, just a man amongst boys with his size, especially with the Jazz's lineup. Gobert is going to be big for Drummond being out there. Now, what I'll be really intrigued to see if we end up facing the Lakers in the playoffs, because we're not going to see the Lakers with LeBron James and Davis and Drummond in the regular season, since our last game against them is on Monday, is how the Jazz are going to defend them. Because if you play Drummond at center, you need Gobert to be guarding Drummond. But then who do you have on Anthony Davis? And I think that you have to bring out Derek Favors and have Derek Favors play on AD. And then you have a Royce O'Neal on LeBron James. And that leaves your 3-point shooting to whoever your last two guys are. And Donovan's going to be on the court. And then more likely than not, Mike Conley. But you could, if Bojan has somehow just came back with a vengeance, it could be Bojan on the court. This Lakers team is scary. It looks like if we play them, that it's going to end up being in the semifinals in the West. And I don't know what the Jazz are going to do. And frankly, I don't know what the Lakers are going to do. It's going to be really intriguing to see what happens and where they go from there. So, hey, thank you to everyone for hopping on the stream. I am happy to keep going if the chat keeps going, and Step Back with Z just added to it. So if anyone else has anything they want to do, add it to the chat. And when the chat, sorry, I'm so scatterbrained today. When the chat winds down, we will, I'll end the stream then. So if the Jazz play the Lakers in the playoffs, Gobert on AD. Okay, so Gobert on AD and Favors on Drummond and Royce on James. That okay. I think Derek is just a bit quicker on the outside than Gobert. And I could be wrong on that. So that's why I think I might have Derek on AD, just because Derek is a bit more mobile and a bit better at guarding the 3-point line than Gobert. But that definitely is a valid option. And my biggest concern there is if that happens to Utah, where is your depth for the bench? Who are you bringing off a set? Are you bringing Ilyasova off in those games, off the bench in those games? And how is he going to continue to play like he played tonight? Or was this more of a game where he just got hot? And are we going to see rougher games down the stretch as he continues to try to get back into NBA shape and be able to get into the Utah Jazz offense? Sawyer Parker said the Clippers and Suns play on Wednesday, and that'll be good. That'll be a really fun game. I'm not sure if that's at the same time as the Jazz game, but I'll probably end up watching the Jazz game Wednesday. I think that I'm doing the live stream that night, but that's going to be a really fun game. Step Back with Z said, I think Favors can guard 2 through 5. He is definitely a great defensive player. I agree with you on that. I feel like he can maybe guard 3 through 5. I don't think Favors is quick enough to guard most 2s. And honestly, power forward and center still kind of exist in the game today. I feel like point guard through small forward just kind of really don't exist in the NBA today, where they all need to be ball handlers. We're definitely moving towards a league where you don't necessarily need a point guard who will always handle the ball, and they all need to be able to shoot the 3 equally well. They all need to be able to attack the basket equally well. So while definitely a point guard will always have slightly better ball handling skills, I don't feel like there's that big of a difference between those 3 positions. Even size-wise, I feel like that has started to just go away on who's playing what position. So Sawyer Parker said, share the channel. Yeah, please do. I think we were at 449 subscribers when it started. So if we could get to 500 subscribers by playoffs, that would be awesome. If this is your first time, please sub. If you have any friends who are Jazz fans, let them know. We're definitely hoping to have a deep playoff run with the Jazz and just enjoy it here with you guys. And yeah, we do these post games every game. We do a weekly episode, and we're hoping to, towards the end of this season and into next season, just keep growing the channel and start to get some more interaction going in. And we've got some exciting things for the future that we're fingers crossed going to be able to work out. So thank you again for everyone who joined. Really just been an exciting season, and we really appreciate just the great community we have here. So thanks again, and go Jazz.